We move on to department, boards, and commissions. Today we have our village forester, Mike Collins, who spent all afternoon burning Swan Pond. And it looks great.
I did. Yes, so good evening, President Ballerine, Manager Francis, and village trustees. I really appreciate the invitation to come and speak tonight. I'm going to be providing a brief forestry update, but before we get into that, I wanted to talk about something that really is near and dear to my heart, which would be our landscape volunteers. We're going to acknowledge a few real standouts, but also talk about some programming just to kind of bring everyone up to speed. And of course, we'll do some questions afterwards, or if you have something pressing during, just let me know. So with that, we call our volunteers the Volunteers in the Forest, which is really sort of a play off of our village moniker. In fact, we did some t-shirts a ways back, and they're a big hit. It was a lot of fun. But, a picture's worth 1,000 words, right? And you can see this is a pretty hard-working group of people here. This was a hot, steamy June day up at Big Ballpark. We were actually weeding and mulching in advance of our 4th of July parade. And, just to give shout-outs from the left to the right, you can see Sean McMullen. And then in the back there, Ken Perlman, Jim Burns up front. And then we have Joel Marhol. And then behind him, you can see Bob Finn, who he's everywhere in the community and contributing. And then, of course, Cindy next to him, and in the back there, Tom Guardi. And then, of course, we have Mark Ross, which we miss him dearly. He passed away a few years ago. But, these are really the hardcore landscape volunteers. They show up at almost every work day. And, outside of our other acknowledgments, I just wanted to kind of give them a shout out because we really appreciate what they do. And, these landscape work days have had sort of an evolutionary path. It's a great partnership with the Frederick Olmsted Society where we provide quality landscape experiences where people can come out, meet their parks, and then also we're working in natural areas, which has been a part of that evolution. And I give Holly Machina with the Olmsted Society a lot of credit because she kind of nudged me in that direction at a pivotal time when we had very limited resources. But and unfortunately, the green pointer does not work on the screen, but the gentleman in the black shirt is Sean Sin, and he has done a lot with us in the way of consulting. He's a restoration ecologist and also a Riverside resident. Just wanted to kind of give a shout out to him. And, really this partnership has led us to working in natural areas alike, whether it be controlled burning like we had done earlier today. And in this picture, you can see them planting sedges along Riverside Road. The idea behind that is not only are we putting native vegetation back, but we're also adding fuel so that we can use controlled burning, which is a great means towards promoting native vegetation and discouraging invasive plants. And then, another neat component about our volunteer programming is that there's a lot of youth engagement just beyond community engagement. You can see this picture of, I believe these were 4 young ladies from the Riverside volleyball team, and they're planting a tree as part of the RB Day of Service, which we've partnered and worked with them, minus the pandemic years, to do a lot of interesting projects throughout the village. So not only do we work with the youth, but we also work with scout troops, which has been very rewarding and interesting. And really, we're just incredibly thankful for all this support. It means a lot to the village, and it's made a tremendous impact. So with that, I'm going to shift gears and acknowledge a standout. And for those of you watching at home, CAROLYN HUSON, or as I like to call her, the Lady of the Long Common. I was very thrilled when President Ballerine had reached out to Director Tabb and had acknowledged that she's out there almost every day weeding, almost rain or shine, depending on how bad it is. But, she has really worked incredibly hard on the Long Common, and her impacts are so noteworthy. I first started working with her probably in 2009, but in 2010 she started tracking her hours. And she's approaching almost 3,000 volunteer hours, which really is a $74,000 labor value for the village. And that's just using seasonal rates, which would be $15. If you use the national average, it would be almost double that. And she's also donated a significant amount of money over this time period, approaching $30,000. And this has been for planting woody trees, shrubs on the lawn common in addition to perennials. And she's also donated from time to time regarding maintenance. So just to zoom in a little further, in 2021, she actually donated $6,000 and put in 254 hours just in a single year, which I think is outstanding. And you can see that labor value and how much she's contributed over time. But the neat thing to me is she probably prioritizes the lawn common over her own garden in a lot of instances. And all these donations, she and I always joke that really we're just trying to outcompete the weeds with perennials and other woody plants. So, I really think she deserves to be acknowledged as an amazing volunteer. But I'm going to hold that thought or I should say pause for a moment, because I also want to acknowledge the Frederick Olmsted Society of Riverside, and more specifically, the landscape chairs, landscape committee chairs. You can see Cindy Kellogg on the left and Holly Machina on the right. This picture was taken when we were pulling garlic mustard out in Indian Gardens. I'll never forget, actually, it was in this very building 17 years ago when I was first starting here. But I had been out removing snow for Public Works, and Director Houlihan at the time asked me, hey, could you pop into the Olmsted annual meeting and just introduce yourself, being new in the community? And, after the meeting, Holly came right up to me and said, really, I want to do some landscape work days. Let's get some volunteer stuff going. And of course, me working at Cantini previously, we had a pretty robust volunteer program, so I knew the value of that and was smart enough to take her up on that offer. So since then, we've crafted over 160 landscape work days, and we do say craft them because they're meant to be experiences for residents to come out, meet their parks, their natural areas, and help beautify the community. And I think we've created an environment that has allowed residents to really engage and buy in with the community. And I think it's also, a statement on the community itself and the historic nature with Frederick Olmsted designing the place. I think a lot of people move here because of what he created. So, really, well, and before I get too far ahead, I would estimate that's probably about 8,000 labor hours over those 160, which would equate to about 120,000. And again, using that national average, it would almost double. So that has been a significant contribution. And then you look at what they've donated over the period of this 17 years, that's $63,000, which is incredible. Really, it's so appreciated, whether it be trees. I think they've donated approaching 130 plus trees. They've donated for perennials and sedge plantings, tools for work days. To me, it's really inspiring how they contribute to us as an organization. And you can see the picture of Cindy Kellogg down below, popping sedge plants into drilled holes with Roy Diblick, who's a pretty well-known plantsman throughout the area in the Chicago region. And then just to zoom in closer, in 2021, it was a pandemic year, so we were pretty limited in terms of who we were allowing to participate, but we still, did quite an amazing feat of doing, I think it was close to 384 volunteer hours. So, that's a pretty significant contribution as well. And I'm just always impressed with Holly and Cindy's dedication to the cause. And really, I consider all of them, Carolyn included, to be my friends, really, because we've gotten to know each other on a personal level. So it's been an amazing, amazing journey. And with that, I just wanted to invite, unfortunately, Cindy couldn't be with us tonight, but Holly is in attendance, as well as Carolyn. And I wanted to invite you up for recognition and just pass a little something along to you. Goodie bags. Treats. Yes. Thank you so much, Carolyn.
Thank you, Mike.
You bet. You're welcome to say something if you like. Not necessary if you don't.
The only thing I would say is, so we've known each other now since my youngest was like a baby. So just in the very, very beginning for me being on the Olmsted Society, and just the what we've done together has been excellent, but it's also been just a lot of fun.
Yeah.
So, and Cindy, if Cindy was here, she would say the same thing, and really Cindy's a hard worker. I send out the emails. But Cindy's really the hard worker. But it's been wonderful, and I think we're gonna keep at it, right? We're not done?
Oh, yeah. I think this is great. I mean, I'm retired now, and if I did not have the long comment and your input, I would be sitting in front of the TV, stuffing my face like all the other old people and die young. So this is keeping me alive, and I think it's wonderful.
Well, we really appreciate it. Thank you so much.
Oh, for Cindy?
Yes.
Okay.
Thank you. Feel free to have a seat, and I'll finish up.
Okay.
All righty. So shifting gears towards our forestry update this evening. And again, I really appreciate all of your time. Just a brief update in terms of our 5-year cyclic tree trimming program. We'll be trimming Zone 5, which is the yellow area. And the idea behind this program is that we're trimming each one of these sections annually over a 5-year rotation. So within that trimming, we're training younger trees, which means that we're pruning for good branch spacing. We're pruning the tree to improve its structure in the long run. So, we're making sure there's not codominant stems, broken branches, or any disease or insect issues. And the same would go with mature trees, but that's more removing deadwood and just preserving the health of these trees as they move forward. And, I think this picture really speaks volumes. It was taken by a tree trimmer that was about 50 feet up in a sycamore tree. I don't know how well you can see this, but you can see the branch is sort of rotted, and below it there's a very small car and a house as well as a sidewalk. So the idea behind this cyclic trimming program is a proactive approach to finding these issues and basically practicing risk reduction or increasing public safety. And then, just to show you a quick picture, this is a photograph of some of the deadwood we would get out of a typical tree. This is over by Indian Gardens, but it's vitally important to maintain these trees, and really when it comes down to it, it saves us a lot of money in the long run in terms of storm damage and stuff of that nature. So we will be trimming Zone 1 up top. Last year we trimmed Zone 5, which was the first division, a total of about 1,500 trees. So shifting gears to removals, you can see the picture on the right is actually of a diseased elm tree that we removed the other year. Typically we remove about 100 trees per year. And last year we actually underachieved, which was nice. We were at 95. And ultimately, a lot of it is driven by, public safety issues. If we find a tree that's hollow or needs to be addressed, we would remove it, but also insect and disease issues. As I mentioned, Dutch elm disease. We also dealt with emerald ash borer from 2014 up to 17, which was a pretty significant impact to the community. But moving forward, basically one thing I wanted to talk to the board about was that unfortunately, last year of the 95 trees removed, 40% were maple species. And I consider maples to be a bit of a canary in the coal mine as it relates to climate change. Basically what I've been seeing is that maples, being a very sensitive species, just like me, they tend to struggle when we have extreme flooding in the spring and those roots are inundated in saturated soils. And then the pendulum swings with climate change where we go into drought conditions, the ground tightens, and it also impacts the roots of these maple trees. And we're starting to see some significant decline in that way. Not to mention, as you can see the picture below, a pretty significant storm damage with the intensity of some of the storms that roll through now. Stuff that really, in my opinion, as a forester doing it now for 25 years, I don't remember this level of damage. So in my observation, things are definitely increasing in terms of that severity and the impact of climate change. And I think as the climate continues to shift, we'll definitely have some challenges, especially with our older tree population. But so far we've been able to manage it and move forward. And then in regards to reforestation, you can see we really focus in on species diversity. Like for instance, if one neighbor has an oak tree, the other neighbor would have a maple tree. Our idea is we don't want to plant either of those species. We would want to install like a tulip tree, like in this picture. And the idea there is to diversify each city block so that, whether climate change, an insect or disease issue, we want to be able to take that impact and not lose an entire forest. So we do practice species diversity, and in 2021, we planted a total of 81 trees. This year in the spring, we're budgeted for 65, and we'll likely increase that number as volunteer operations go on in the fall. And then I also did want to just provide an update regarding our Worth program. For those of you not familiar, it's the White Oak Riverside Tree Heritage Program. And, I got to liaison or sort of put on my squirrel costume and run around the river and collect basically acorns from a lot of different white oak species. These are pre-settlement white oaks, and we have given them to Possibility Place to grow on to 2-inch diameter caliper, and then we'll underplant these in around those river areas. And the hope there is to preserve the genetic legacy that we inherited with Mr. Olmsted. Putting something back as these older white oaks mature and decline, we'll still have that genetic diversity and legacy. Finally, shifting to restoration. Riverside Road is an area where this all really began, and it started as Olmsted Work Days. And then I think at the time, President Sells saw the progress made and was willing to invest a bit more in restoration. You can see this picture here. Generally, we have a wall of green buckthorn. Buckthorn is an invasive species that grows in our woodlands and chokes out our native trees. And you can see it's in fall color, some of our native plants. So buckthorn outcompetes them and also has a longer growing season, which makes things very difficult, and it's definitely a force to be reckoned with. So you can see in the picture below that we actually cleared away all that buckthorn, opening up a view to the river, and we've been doing controlled burns on Riverside Road as well as native sedge plantings in collaboration with the Olmsted Society. And it's made really good progress. I'm very happy with how that's come along. Also, Indian Gardens, we've started doing more restoration activities over there. We've cleared out some areas along the riverbank and started implementing sedges there as well. And we've done controlled burning in the past, in addition to buckthorn removal. But to steal someone's line, it's very akin to painting the Golden Gate Bridge. By the time you get to one end, you have to start and repaint all the other. So, and then lastly, I just wanted to close out with Swan Pond. For those of you who are around today, you may have seen a little bit of smoke and fire. We were able to implement successfully a controlled burn or ecological burn down there, which I'm very pleased. It was about a total of 4 acres that we were able to burn. And for those of you not familiar with controlled burning, a lot of our invasive plants have not evolved with fire, whereas sedges, oaks over time have evolved and have an ecology and a relationship where they can tolerate fire. So the more you can introduce fire to these areas, the more you give natives a competitive advantage. And, I really did want to state to the board that I am very appreciative of you putting your foot forward on the Swan Pond area as a naturalized area, which really happened last year. But I think it'll be a very, very challenging journey, but a very rewarding one. And I think for the most part, the residents really appreciate how it started to naturalize. And then I did want to just share this picture. One other thing we've been doing is treating for invasives. This year we'll be doing 3 treatments to knock back reed canary grass, teasel, thistle, and stuff of that nature. You can see these brown patches. I just kind of wanted to share that picture to give you a feel for what these reed canary grass treatments are about. And we're really just spot applying herbicides to control these. So Really, I think it's going to be a very fluid situation, especially with river flooding, which will bring in more weed seed. But I think getting these burns and controlling the invasives will really, create a beautiful park down there. So with that, I just wanted to thank all of you for your time once again. And if you had any questions, I would leave you with this wonderful sunset over the Des Plaines.
Thank you, Michael. Trustees,
you.
do you have any questions?
How long
Please.
did the fire take today?
We started, I would say, around 10:30 with a test burn. And then I would say we wrapped up probably around 3 o'clock. That's when the wind shifted. So, you need to be conscious of where the smoke's going. So we had to stop at that point. Otherwise, I would have kept going. But
It was a sight to be seen. I had some good pictures of it. Thank you.
Great.
Appreciate everything you do. CAROLYN, thank you for everything you do. We really appreciate it. For the years that I've been driving down Long Common or Nuttall and see your bike parked against one of the trees, and I'm like, okay, where is she? And then, you could see it, hiddled in the corner. So we really, really appreciate what you do.
I love doing it. I just love doing it.
We appreciate that. And Holly, the Olmsted Society and your leadership, and we appreciate everything that the Olmsted Society does. And in recognition of that, this board has decided that we will donate the bench that's going to the Overlook as a birthday present for the Olmsted Society for Mr. Olmsted's birthday. So thank you very much for everything you do.
very nice.
Okay.